Welcome to this video in which I will talk about age depth modeling and how it has been developing over the past few decades or so. For me, writing this talk was actually quite a bit of a trip down memory lane because I first became involved in paleoecology not as an undergraduate but as during my PhD. I did my PhD in Amsterdam University with as supervisors Henny Hiemstra and Bas van Geel, who both are very active in pollen, tropical pollen for Henry and European pollen for Bas. Bas also does macrofossils, wiggle match dating and solar forcing of climate change. And that's really the topics that I was looking at for during my PhD. Then I also had a supervisor in Groningen at the AMS lab, Hans van der Plicht. And he was really generous in providing us with very many dates. And we needed many dates because what we were doing was to look at peat deposits and changes in the vegetation in the peat, which are an indication of climate change. And we wanted to date those changes as precisely as possible because we wanted to check whether decadal or centennial scale changes in solar activity, to what degree they occur together with changes in vegetation, so changes in climate. To do so, we needed this wiggle match dating, which is you date many closely spaced samples for radiocarbon dates, and then you place them on the calendar scale by moving your age model around, and you move your age model around such that you get a nice fit of your radiocarbon dates onto the calibration curve. And that's quite expensive, and you also have to have quite a few assumptions about how your site has been accumulating. And also one issue I found it very hard to estimate the uncertainty involved in these chronologies. Can we go to the yearly precision, or is it decadal, or is it centennial? And I was really doubting a lot about that, trying to quantify that and make it as good as possible, but also as robust and realistic as possible. For that, we needed software. And of course, there was Tilia, which produces pollen diagrams, but can also be used to do some degree of age depth modeling. And we'll look at that later. There's also Excel, of course, which can be used for all kinds of numerical approaches, but you easily reach the limits of what can be done in Excel. Then at the time I was doing my PhD and choosing which software to use, there was also this thing called R, which was really upcoming, and there was also the commercial version S+, and I didn't really know how to go about that, so we left that alone and we decided to go for the wiggle match dating with Excel. Bad choice, but that's what we did. Now for Tilia, so Tilia is very useful for plotting pollen diagrams and macrofossil diagrams, but what caught my attention mostly was how to deal with scale, with the vertical axis. Because you've got depth on the vertical axis, and then also somehow you get age on the vertical axis. So you have some implicit age depth model. And you then had to enter the dates. These were uncalibrated at the time because calibration curves were just coming up and becoming mainstream. So it was quite difficult to get those chronologies into Tilia. It was sometimes quite frustrating and things would crash, as has been mentioned before. So you had to remember exactly which pages to use, how to input the data, and we had to be very relaxed in, if things crash, to input the data again and again and again. But that's because that was what the software was like in those times. It was each different piece of software came on its own with its quirks. Tilia was really a pioneering piece of software. And it was again quite difficult to get through the software because of all the many different pages and options. But there was Keith Bennett. He had written very helpful web pages to help you go through the different Tilia and Tiliograph options. He had also written his own piece of software to produce pollen diagrams and also do some age modeling. So it was quite interesting to see that developing. So again, Tilia we used for plotting the macrofossils and the pollen, but not for the age models. For that we used Excel, but quickly after my PhD I actually left Excel aside because of the many limits and limitations, and instead went on to work in R. I did lots of numerical paleoecology during my PhD and also afterwards, and many people were involved in that in piquing my interest here. And for example, I went to the UCL course in 2001, numerical analysis of biological and environmental data with John Burks, and I didn't understand even a third of what was discussed there because it was all very difficult stats, but I found it fascinating. And again here, there were all these different pieces of software, not one piece of software, although we were talking about R as a thing to use, but it wasn't used at that moment yet, but it was thought about. And then there was also several training courses related to ESF funded Holyvar, where I was first a student and also later on taught at the courses. And of course there's also these pollen database meetings, where age modeling was also discussed. There I met Eric in one of or several of those meetings. I've decided to continue in this area of numerical paleoecology and to continue to develop age modeling approaches, and I did that in Mexico with Andres Christen, a Bayesian statistician, and we really clicked. We had lots of things in common and ideas in common of how to produce new types of age depth models. And so I did a postdoc there. It was the best time of my life, and it's beautiful, beautiful town in Guanajuato. And I produced initially BPEAT, and that developed later into Bacon, and I also produced some other types of software. To disseminate this software and the age modeling, we organized 2 or 3 workshops in Mexico, and again it was quite relaxed in many ways, with nice breakfasts and nice lunches and nice excursions. And Keith Bennett came there, mostly to watch birds, but he also participated in the workshop, of course. Ron Reimer, who is a researcher in AMS in Belfast, Queen's University Belfast, also joined, and Eric Grimm. Eric Grimm was really interested in seeing how age depth models could be enhanced. So that was really good. And here we have a photo of many of the people involved, including Eric. Then Keith Bennett asked me to come to Belfast, and I don't know why, but I said yes. And it was actually a very good decision because there's an AMS there. We've just updated our AMS and I'm really excited about it. And besides Keith and Ron, there's also Paula Reimer, who headed the INTCAL acceleration curve group. So it's a very good lab to be and to work on age depth modeling. Over the years, I've produced several pieces of software then, including BPEAT, which has now been superseded by Bacon, also classical age depth modeling software, CLAM, and lately we've also become more involved in LED to 10 dating in a Bayesian framework, Plum. If you're interested in knowing more, please contact me. And all of this is produced within one software package, one software environment, and that's R. And I think it's actually that has helped quite a lot in making things more consistent and approaches and workflows more consistent across different approaches. And now we can plot our proxies not using just one curve, but actually using grayscales that indicate chronological uncertainty. Now the nice thing here is that Eric came to see those different pieces of software and the workshops, and then he decided, yes, this is something that could be worthwhile to include in Tilia and also in Neotoma. So now CLAM and Bacon, together with bcron and Oxcal speed sequence, are one of the options, the age modeling options available in Tilia and in Neotoma. So it's really nice to see it's just come full circle that the approaches that we've been developing have actually been implemented in Tilia and Neotoma. I'm really happy about that. there's also some interesting thing happening in that there's the classical HSF models, which have been very popular over the past 30 years or so. But over the last 10 years, Bayesian age models such as P-sequence of Oxcal, Bcron, and Bacon have become very, very popular. And over the past 5 years or so, here are yearly citations to the different pieces of software in Scholar Google. Over the past 5 years or so, Bayesian age models have really overtaken classical ones in popularity. Classical age models have more or less plateaued in citations, and the Bayesian age models keep on growing. So I'm really happy to see this revolution taking place in the paleo community and to be part of that evolution or revolution. And also it's just really nice to be part of this bigger community with very influential people, including, of course, Eric. Thank you for your attention.